Again, we're coming live, well, not from my recording studio, but again, from my home office. And I guess today we're going to be covering the Strong. Last time we talked about the MBTI and about how that instrument is more of a personality inventory, where your responses are analyzed according to 4 different scales based on bipolar adjective pairs. And today we're going to talk about the Strong, which measures your likes and dislikes, your preferences, and preferred work environments, let's just say. Now, this assessment is based on the Holland codes, which basically are can be represented or referred to as general occupational themes. So based on the Holland codes, this instrument was created called the general occupational themes. Each general occupational theme occupies a corner of this hexagon, for example. So these themes are represented on this hexagon, each corner representing a general occupational theme or a preferred work environment. And the preferred work environment or the themes based on the Holland codes would be R, I, A, S, E, C. Those are the Holland codes. Okay. And the GOTs, obviously, they represent general occupational themes in each corner, again, showing preferred work environment. So this corner, based on the assessment of the Strong, you're going to end up with anywhere from 1 to 2 or 3 letter code, okay, that we'll talk about now. And let's just say you scored high on R. R stands for realistic and is also referred or known as the doers. The doers. And according to this corner, it says people who are realistic, tend to have athletic or mechanical ability. They prefer to work with objects, machines, tools, plants or animals, and they like to be outdoors. Does that sound like you? Definitely not for someone who is in a 9-to-5 cubicle all day. This person likes to work in unstructured settings, independently, work with their hands and with machines, tools, or have some type of outdoor activity. Now, the I corner stands for investigative. I can squeeze this in. Well, investigative. And these people are referred to as the thinkers. The thinkers, okay? In parentheses. And the thinking types, they like to observe, learn, evaluate, observe. Okay, they like to analyze and solve problems. They like to use machines and other devices for problem solving, abstract problem solving, whether they end up with a concrete resolve or not. And they tend to, they like to work, I think, independently and probably kind of very much aligned to what I can think of in terms of careers, maybe engineering, computer science, that kind of thing. And then we have the A corner, which stands for artistic. These people love to work in unstructured settings. They like freedom, independence. They value creativity. Oftentimes they're intuitive. And again, they like to work in unstructured settings and they like to use their imagination and creativity. Now, A types, not all A types, artistic types have talent to be marketable. And again, sad to say, there are a lot of talented people out there that are unknown, and they are fantastic in their area of artistic expression, whether it be painting, music, and so forth. And I guess, but some of them are not. And those that are not are still creative still imaginative and all that. But in terms of employment, often go to opposing corners to look for immediate employment. So if they are not able to get a record contract or maybe a premier gallery showing or something in that nature, and they need to, they need to work, they often go to opposing or related corners of the hexagon that kind of demonstrate other preferred work environments. And we'll talk about that in a second. Artistic types are also known as creative types, obviously, because they like to create. And then, of course, we have the S people. S stands for social, and social people are also known as helpers. Helpers. And social types, well, social types like to work with people. They like to inform, educate, empower, train, develop. They're pretty skilled with words, and pretty much they can find employment in a variety of different fields. Thinking education, psychology, social work, even business, and so forth. Then we have E for enterprising. Right? Enterprising. And these people are also known as the persuaders. Because like the social types, enterprising types also like to work with people, deal with people, educate, train, and so forth. But more importantly, they like to persuade. They like to sell. It says that these people like to influence, persuade, they like to lead, they like to manage, they like to work toward organizational goals. So typical business-related functions, as you can probably guess. And now we have the C's, which are known as the conventional types. Conventional types. And these people are known as the organizers. These people love to work with information, data. They have good numerical and clerical ability. They like to follow other people's directives in terms of accomplishing specific tasks. And they have excellent follow through. And again, they like to work with information, probably data management, MIS, management information systems, administrative type of positions at different levels and so forth. So those are the 6 general occupational themes. The 6 general occupational themes occupying each corner of this hexagon, also representing preferred work environments. So the strong utilizes the GOT scales, okay, and it has other scales too, such as the BIS, basic interest scales. Typically, the basic interest scales kind of support each of these corners, each of these general occupational themes. So each theme has its own subset of basic interest scales. And interestingly enough, let me go ahead and give you a quick example of what I mean by that. For example, under R for realistic, the basic interest scales that support that general occupational theme would be military, computer hardware, electronics, protective services, athletics, mechanics, construction, nature, and agriculture. And there's probably a few more you can add to that list. Okay. Let's just take for another one, for example, artistic. Okay. Under the artistic general occupational theme, the basic interest scales that measure and support that theme, that corner, would be culinary arts, performing arts, writing and mass communication, visual arts and design, and on and on and on. Okay, so again, the idea is that each corner, each general occupational theme has its own subset of basic interest scales that again, show specific activities that hopefully are just as high, just as measurable as the theme that you are part of. Okay, so if you end up getting a high score on realistic, then usually as a counselor, we check the basic interest scales to see if those scales are just as high, at least in some of the areas that support that corner. Okay, all right. So the GOT, general occupational themes, basic interest scales, and then the other scale is the OS scale, the occupational scales, and that represents 122 occupations, again, divided among each of these 6 corners, because there's certain select careers that are geared more toward realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, conventional, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, so each general occupational theme not only has a specific subset of basic interest scales to help support that theme, that corner, but also has its own set of occupational scales that are, again, specific to that theme in that corner. And then you have a couple more. You have what's called the personal style scales. And those are scales that measure your preference for learning, working, relationships, leisure activities, leadership, working either independently or with a group, et cetera, et cetera. And again, all that information is good. And hopefully this information combined with this scale will hopefully support the general occupational theme or corner of which you are, you're interested in or you have your preference in. Okay, so since we talked about all the scales that analyze your results, basically at that point, you're going to be receiving your packet, your strong results, again, in the email from the Career Center. And it's going to be a packet, and it's going to be comprised of detailed information about each of these themes and where your themes are, whether it be 1 or 2 or 3 letters. Now, regarding this, if you preferably, there are 2 types of outcomes that you can expect. Which had more space, but you can have a consistent result and an inconsistent result. Okay, yeah, let me go ahead and run consistent types or codes that represent your preferences for work environment is if you well, I guess I can make it smaller here. Okay. RIASEC. Now, if you happen to have codes that are next to each other, like the IAS, or in a combination of like ASI, okay, or IIS, then you have a consistent type. And so achieving success will be pretty much straightforward, okay? But if you tend to have an inconsistent type, that means you have like an I, A, and then an opposing corner, C, right? IAC, or a combination of CAI or CIA. Okay. And so those are inconsistent codes, which means you can still be very successful, but instead of going straight to your objective or your goal, people like that tend to go like this to get to the top or to reach their goal. They kind of go like this, finally reaching it. Okay. And there's nothing good or bad about that. It's just that everybody has different types, different codes. Some are consistent, whether that works out for them or not. And some are inconsistent, which still works out, but they just take different paths to get to the final journey, or that kind of thing. Now, in terms of the GOT, so we talked about the general occupational themes, and we talked about the basic interest scales. I wanted to kind of spend a little time on the occupational scales. Now, the occupational scales, like I said, represent 122 careers divided among each of these 6 corners, these general occupational themes. But oftentimes sometimes they come across inconsistent information. And for example, when they look at the occupational theme, they come up high under a certain theme, and then looks at the job titles under that theme, and they find that they scored relatively high on one specific job title, and they get confused. They go, John, what is this? What's up? And usually, like, for example, they may score high on the job title of mortuary director. Okay. And they kind of come back and talk to me and say, what? I don't want to be a mortuary director. How could I have come up high on that? Talk about a dead end job. No, a bump, right? No, what happens is whenever you come up high on a job title that seems inconsistent or inconsistent with what you think you like or you like, the first thing you need to do is not to look at the job title. I may have said this before, never get hung up on job titles, get hung up on job function, because there could be a variety of different jobs and job titles that have the same functions or a combination of same functions. So if you scored high in mortuary director and you don't like the sound of that, look at the different functions or skill sets required for that job. Well, a funeral director, mortuary director, is pretty much a business person or a manager. Okay. And it may seem that you like business and you like management, regardless of what it's called, the title might be called, that's connected to it later. Mortuary director also is responsible, probably, unless it's a large company, they're responsible, they have a lot of accountability, accounting functions, unless they have, compartmentalized departments that do that, as we talked about before. Mortuary directors also deal with people in grief, experiencing loss. And so they have to utilize a little bit of communication and counseling skills. So maybe the way you responded to some of these questions leads the assessment to think, okay, you enjoy working with people, you enjoy counseling people, helping them get through certain events, and you also tend to like management and maybe a little bit of accountability, bookkeeping, maybe on the side. Okay, again, all of this is leading up to that job title. Other skill sets would be probably organizational skills, time management skills, analytical skills, okay? Because again, you're dealing with a population of people who have experienced loss and are grieving, and you have to be able to, adapt and be able to provide services and care for them, okay? While at the same time performing other functions within that business. So probably if you look at the job functions, then it starts to make sense. Oh, I can see that. But the job title could be different, okay? It could be different. Plus, this, let's say, based on your general occupational theme, where this came from, I would also double check the basic interest scales that support that particular theme or corner to see exactly if those interests, those activities are compatible with what the general occupational theme is suggesting. And also the occupational scale, what title it's suggesting, for example, mortuary director. So you tend to look at both the occupational scale, look at the title, several titles where you came up high toward the right side. And back it up, you look at the general occupational theme to see if you agree with it. And then lastly, you look at the basic interest scales, the specific interests and activities that support that theme or that corner. And then the occupational scale probably, or the titles suggested by the occupational scale, start to make sense a little bit, okay? Now, let's say another example, that your general occupational theme, you came up high on the general occupational theme of I, investigative, right? Investigative. And under the occupational scales, it shows a variety of different job titles, one of which is engineering, engineer. And you kind of say, yeah, I agree with that. I would love to be an engineer, and plus, if it is, you do come up high on that general occupational theme, that corner, and the job title also suggests engineer, you're probably thinking, yeah, I'd love to be an engineer. I love the way, I can just imagine myself walking through an engineering office with a white shirt and tie and a pocket full of pens, just really styling, but not so fast. But then there's an imbalance, an inconsistency between the occupational scale that suggests engineering, but when you try to corroborate it with your basic interest scales, you find out that one of the activities, and again, it makes sense, is math. Okay. I also go, wow, math, I don't like math. Oh man, I don't like math at all. And that's why you may have come out high on the occupational scale of engineering, because you like the title and you have this romanticized view of it. Okay. But when it comes to actually the specific activities required of an engineer in preparation, such as math, your basic interest skills might have taken a dive. And so there's an inconsistency between what the title suggests and what the actual activities are. Okay. And so if you like engineering, as a counselor, I would look at that. I would look at that situation. I would say, okay, if you really, 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 really want to be an engineer, then you will do everything necessary to remediate your math skills and take all the necessary prerequisites, go to the math lab, get a math tutor, really, crunch down on the numbers, as they say, and go through the prerequisite math courses to reach, again, probably the pre-calculus, the calculus, differential equations, and so forth. If you really, really want to be an engineer, then you will remediate in those basic subjects necessary to come up to par. Now, if you say, I love engineering, but I don't like math and I have no interest in math, at least not advanced mathematics, then a second option would be to look at other related occupations in the field of engineering. Again, you don't have to be an engineer to be in engineering. The same idea is you don't have to be an airline pilot to be in the aviation or the airline industry. And you don't have to be a rock star to be in the music industry. Okay. So there's a lot of other related occupations and job titles within the field of engineering that are also vital to the function of an engineering firm or company. So you may not be an engineer, but you can maybe get a degree in business and work in an engineering company, engineering firm. I kind of know that maybe not a lot, well, maybe a lot, or maybe quite a few people who enter the engineering field as engineers end up going over to the side of sales. I guess they find it more lucrative. And some actually go into management, different levels of management. So you might start off as an engineer, but that doesn't necessarily mean you'll be employed as an engineer throughout your entire career. You could be, going into different other related careers. So if you want to be in engineering, you don't necessarily have to be an engineer, but you can look at other options, other degree options that would put you in the realm of engineering, providing also vital function, whether it be an engineer or not. Okay. So that would take care of that. And so you have some options, whether to remediate, choose other related areas within engineering, or third, choose a different major, right? And hopefully assessments like these will help you explore other possibilities as well. So that's the occupational scales. Now, the personal style scales, let me talk about that really quickly. Personal style scales is interesting because it shows your preference for other areas. Again, all this is cohesive, all relates together, and they're all interdependent, interrelated in a way. But if you look at the personal style scales, it's kind of divided between, work style, learning. What else? Oh, leadership. Again, all this information is going to be in your packet when you get it, if you don't already have it. Risk taking. I guess I just should have put risk. And team orientation. And it kind of divides this into about two bipolar areas. Okay. Divides into two bipolar areas. Now, the first one talks about work style. And it says that people who score on the left side tend to enjoy working alone, working with data and ideas, tends to enjoy just being independent, okay, prefers working alone. So that would suggest maybe an introvert based on the Myers-Briggs, okay? And the other side of the coin is if you score on this side, it pretty much says you prefer working with people, you enjoy helping others, you enjoy being part of a group. So this suggests extrovert, being an extrovert. Now, these other areas do not necessarily coincide with this. Work style does. It just happened to do that. Okay, that's specific. Intro extrovert, that's specific to this measure. The others have different measures. For example, learning. If you scored on the left-hand side, it suggests that you prefer practical learning environments. that you look at education more as an ends well, more as an end than a means. Okay. And it says that you prefer working for specific goals and objectives, not necessarily comfortable in an academic setting. And what else does it say? You prefer short-term training. Now, many of you who are on this side, I know what you're thinking. You're saying, oh man, what am I doing pursuing a transfer program to Cal State Fullerton? Oh my gosh, maybe I should go and drop all my classes. Not so fast. It just says that that's your preferred MO. Okay, you prefer practical learning environment, short-term training. Okay, but that doesn't necessarily suggest that you can't do it. Those who go on this side, score high on the right side, enjoy academic environments. They enjoy the means as well as the ends, or more of the means actually, okay? And they enjoy academic environments, learning, reading, and just acquiring knowledge. And then that may lead to people who you might think, well, those are the people who finish college, who finish their bachelor's, go to master's, PhD. Not so fast. Oftentimes, a lot of these people are what we call professional students, and they just love being in school like perpetually, forever, without really, coming to an endpoint. They just love learning for the sake of learning, whether it leads someplace or not. On the left side, people are more practical, okay? But I know a lot of people on the left side that aren't so comfortable, may not prefer a formal academic environment or long-term, educational goal. But I know a lot of people on this side that actually went on to get a PhD. And those on this side who are probably still in school. Okay, so it just depends. This side, people look at education as an ends. I need education to go from point A to point B, and that makes sense. And here they look at education as a means. Okay, not so much as an ends, but a means. So that's that. Leadership. On the left-hand side, it just says that people on this side are not comfortable taking leadership roles or positions. They are not comfortable managing others. They would rather follow through on other people's directives. Okay. On this side, they enjoy taking leadership. They enjoy running the show. They enjoy management. Okay. Let's see, risk taking. People on this side of the fence, on the left side, feel uncomfortable taking risks. They dislike taking risks. They like security, routine, are probably perfectly happy being an employee, as long as they have that security. On this side of the fence are the risk takers, people who tend to be entrepreneurs. They enjoy the challenge, maybe the adrenaline of getting into a situation and seeing it through. They say that 8 out of correct me if I'm wrong, 8 out of 10 new startups fail. But they're going to go ahead and say, I'm not going to be that 8. I'm going to be the 9th or 10th startup that does succeed. So they have a positive mindset, and they tend to be comfortable taking risks. Left-hand side on team orientation. People on this side prefer to work alone. They're not comfortable being part of a group. Okay. They like to be an independent contributor, more of a problem solver. On this side, they love being part of a group, helping the group solve the problem together, and not so much being on their own. They thrive by being with people. Well, again, that might suggest an extrovert, okay, and an introvert. So some of these categories may align up with the introvert extrovert type of mentality, but not all of them. Not all of them. That might be coincidental. Okay. And again, when you get your packet, I'm not exactly sure. I'm sure what page that might be on yours. On mine, it happens to be page 9. On yours, it might be page 10. But there is what they call a profile summary. So if you're saying, hey, I don't want to read all of this. I just want to cut to the chase. I just want to see what my top general occupational themes are. What are my top basic interest scales are? What are my top occupational scales or career titles? what are my top personal style preferences? I just want to go, just tell me what my top, each of those categories are. Now, the profile summary, it'll give you a profile of exactly that. Your highest themes, your top 5 interest scales, your top occupations, top personal style scales, preferences, et cetera, et cetera. See, response summary, that's another category that shows response percentages that for different sections. Don't worry about that. Now, what's really interesting toward the end of that packet, this I want you to look at. There's a section that says using your themes, and it breaks down, check this out, college majors broken down and divided by each of the general occupational themes. Oh my gosh. So if you're still a little undecided about or indecisive about your major, this assessment gives it to you on a silver platter based on your general occupational theme or themed. It suggests what specific majors are aligned with that theme. Okay. My goodness, typical college majors by theme. Now, can it get any easier than this? Oh my goodness, now there's another section on basic interest scales, and it breaks down the different activities, and I guess, activities, job settings, college courses, organizational and campus activities that relate to each of the basic basic interest scales. Oh my goodness, so if you came up high under, let's say, the basic interest scale of, let's say, investigative, I, and that BIS scale is pretty high in itself, but you look at the highest, where you came out highest on those on the BIS, and it'll suggest exactly campus and organizational activities per your basic interest scale preference, internship, job settings, and college courses. Oh my gosh, this just gives it to you. And it says using your occupational scales, it shows your top occupational rankings. And again, it divides all and organizes all that information according to the themes, your highest themes, of course, and breaks it down not only into codes, but also into educational preparation, college majors, again, related careers. All of that information is like a matrix according to your general occupational theme. And not only shows you your top careers, but it breaks it down into, well, how much education is required, what are the typical college courses that you would have to take if you pursued that career or major, and then again, related careers, and again, your top personal style scales. So in a way, it's like, I don't know, I kind of equate it like the day you were born, probably did not receive, from the hospital in a baby's owner manual, your owner's manual. You probably didn't receive it. You can ask your parents, hey, when I was born, did I get an owner's manual in my crib? Did they throw it in there? Okay. Well, guess what? Today, the Strong is your owner's manual, all about you. The MBTI is also your owner's manual, and might even have a quick startup guide. You never know. Now, not one single assessment or instrument is going to give you everything that you need to know. Okay. And you shouldn't base all your decisions on one instrument, but multiple measures, as they say. Okay. And so the MBTI was one type of assessment. Hopefully, gave you some useful information and more awareness. And then the Strong hopefully gave me another set of information, more geared toward likes and dislikes, and again, toward occupational career, choices. So, wow. So yeah, between the two, that's your personal manual that you forgot to get, or they forgot to give you when you were born. Now, today, only in Counseling 12, you are getting your owner's manual with a quick start guide, probably. Check the warranty. All right. Well, I guess we came to the end of the show. I hope you found it informative. Again, all this information will be in your packet, and hopefully you'll make good use of it. You can always follow up with either myself or your counselor of choice with these assessments, to have the counselor review them with you and also make other suggestions based on this information. If you'd like to also get that kind of assistance and maybe make some important choices. So until next time, we'll see you on the next video. All right, take care. Bye. And I am, as always, out. Or not yet. Now I am. Bye.